welcome back. Welcome to our morning parallel sessions on Thursday. It's great to see everybody. And we've got 3 talks in this session. We have an additional talk added at 12 noon from Shelby Marshall, who wasn't able to present yesterday. And from 11 to 12, we'll have Bruce Cronquist and Todd Stone from Dell, along with Suzanne Walsh from Bennett College, talking about corporate L&D and education. But first, I'm really delighted to have Adamantios Koumpis here, and he always has an interesting perspective on a lot of things, and I'm looking forward to hearing more about it. He's going to talk to us about mistakes, the shadow capital for learning, and I'm going to turn this over to you, and really looking forward to hearing your talk. So it's all yours.
Thanks, David. When preparing for this talk, I was still lacking a basic concept to use for bringing you closer to the main idea of my talk today. And luck, and especially good luck, can neither be planned nor engineered to happen. So one may only hope for it. So when I read about this in this German newspaper, Die Zeit, I knew that I had this eureka moment we all hope to have sometime. And in the newspaper article, which is some weeks ago, 26th of May, it is about public spending and how administrations and the government, in Germany at least, think about the costs. In the private sector, a solution has been found by an Italian monk named Luca Pacioli. Pacioli was a friend of Leonardo da Vinci and is considered the inventor of the modern bookkeeping and accounting. And all this back in 1494. As of that time, tradespeople were only recognizing incomes and expenses or revenues and expenditures. So exactly what we all do for our private households still today. And Pacioli introduced the double entry accounting system, according to which every financial transaction consists of 2 symmetrical and concurrent operations. So same as for a company, that an increase in the value of the assets is a debt to the account and a decrease is a credit. And on the flip side, an increase in liabilities is a credit to the account and a decrease is a debit. This is the basis that companies nowadays follow, where bookkeeping happens by entering every distinct debt and credit in 2 places on a company balance sheet. Now, however, when it comes to mistakes, we all calculate like in Middle Ages. Is it our Christian tradition that did not allow us to open and widen our horizons? I suppose there are other monotheistic religions that are same reluctant to increase the sophistication when it comes to mistakes. We hate mistakes, we detest mistakes, both our own and of other people, and there is a natural tendency and a drive for hiding them. And when impossible to do this anymore, then an attempt starts for whitewashing them. And perhaps less money is spent on detergents than on hiding and whitewashing human mistakes annually on a global level. And it's a disturbing fact for the soap and detergent business. And perhaps it was a source of unstoppable and unrestrained growth and prosperity for the Vatican. So my main thesis today is that we should introduce into our corporate lives and routines same double entry bookkeeping and accounting practices for our mistakes. I'm sure this may bring big smiles to the faces of many of us. Doing things right is always fun, but from now on, doing things wrong will also give people more pleasure than before. So imagine ourselves being blamed for making a mistake and claiming that we are only investing in our future learning. So husbands, we do this every day, I think, though with poor results, I'm afraid. So I have seen some years now that people are organizing fuck-up nights where entrepreneurs present how they succeeded in failing. Not having made any money at all may still have the opportunity to give people an opportunity to become famous and get their 15 minutes of fame because of a failure. So here it's definitely not about this. One cannot afford to give up or quit. It is like being a parent. We see the mistakes we did in raising our children so far, but we cannot go to a TV show and proudly announce how excellently we fucked things up. We have the responsibility to shut up and try right the ship, correct our mistakes. And there is, of course, a fear aspect. I know how it is. We all know how it is. I had the good luck that in my first job, There was a culture that allowed us to openly ask for help when something went wrong. And this happened a lot of times. But as I changed working places, and for some years now also the countries I live in and the surrounding cultures, I see how brutal people deal with other people's mistakes and how afraid themselves they are for admitting their own mistakes. Between doing nothing or doing something possibly wrong, people usually prefer the first. And if enforced to do something, they may prefer to engage others and prepare a safe ground for failing correctly and smoothly. It is sad how much anonymously politically correct we are, all of us are, when it comes to mistakes. And how can this attitude change? It's not difficult at all. The time has since long now come. The biggest problem here is that we all have been educated, or rather ill-educated, to detest and be ashamed of mistakes. And this results to the following paradox. People from all levels and parts and segments and sides of the society, the economy, the politics, independently on how left, right, radical, or reactionary we are, we exhibit the same behavior to mistakes. A similar unity in views only death can effectuate. And in the following minutes, I shall share with you some ideas that are there available for you to pick up and apply. They are all meant to help us increase the value from mistakes we make. And the first is to build a mistakes observatory within our company or our organization. And the idea here is to institutionalize an open and continuous dialogue culture where mistakes shall be discussed and discussed and discussed. One may not see the value for this, or one may not see the reason for keeping on discussing about one specific mistake. I'm happy that you now may make a mistake about this. When we talk about a mistake we did or someone else did in the past, no need to take as an example a recent politician. So it's safe to take as an example a textbook case, the case of Richard Nixon. We may come up with some arguments, pro or contra, but we are not done yet. We have to keep on discussing with the others, try shed light on aspects that may have contributed positively to an escalation or have affected the mistake to scale up and become an issue and then eventually a problem. So it's not a single pass process. One needs to dedicate serious resources and efforts on this. Otherwise, there will be no shadow capital at all there. There will be zero learning and only the pretense that all is well. If it is about this, then it's far better to continue the way we now do with our mistakes. Hide them, find excuses to blame others, or if unavoidable, then whitewash them. Secondly, connect our mistakes observatory with other mistakes observatories within our sector. So the idea here is that a mistake observatory doesn't need to be corporate-wide. It might start from a unit or a department of a company, people who share a culture and the feeling that they can move something. Then it is only a matter of time to have other departments or units of the company feeling confident to participate and share with their own experiences and mistakes. As we already said, no one likes to talk about their mistakes, while we all feel comfortable to talk about mistakes of other people. So here's a good piece of advice. Invite other people from other departments within our organizations to have access to our own mistakes repository. Make them feel comfortable to contribute their own interpretations and co-shape with us explanation about what went wrong, what we did wrong. Apart from providing us for free with their knowledge and opinions, they shall feel more comfortable about this outing process, where stories will be shared and examined again and again, so that some better grounded conclusions and lessons learned may be drawn. So it is only a little matter of time till this culture and perception about mistakes will change. And
really
okay,
quick, sorry to interrupt quickly. Just I know you had a couple of slides. We're not seeing your slides right now, so you may need to reshare. Yeah, I think you may need to reshare. So I don't think you rely on them too heavily, but
I will. Thanks, David. Thanks, David. Okay. I will now again reshare my screen. So the question is it an observatory or a repository? My question would be, does it matter? One may build this in any form they like best, or actually in any form they think it has higher chances to succeed and make people want to use it. So it shouldn't be tiring to learn it. It should not offer an exciting interface. So here the basic principle is that form should follow function. And should it look like a confessional or a Big Brother diary room? My answer is I don't know. It's you that have to find the answer to this. Sometimes people feel more comfortable to admit and discuss mistakes publicly. Some other times they prefer to do this only amongst people they can trust. And about KPIs, are there any KPIs? So if someone is obsessed with KPIs, if they need KPIs to organize things or feel better in control of their actions and also of their mistakes, then of course there is space to define some KPIs here. And I think it's good to avoid mentioning the obvious. A simple counter that counts each employee's or each single department's mistakes, though as a metric it would be interesting, it would not necessarily be much useful or much sense-making. So we might, for example, identify that a certain employee or employees in general make mistakes because of poor training or because of the lack of proper supervision, or there are for sure many reasons for accounting mistakes than to blame the person that makes them. And one can always learn to see the bigger picture from them. So we can look in many other industries to see how they treat mistakes rather as invaluable sources than scapegoats we are used to regard the ones who make them. So if we look to the aviation industry, for instance, there is the concept of flight safety that is now well known but developed since the mid-50s. So there the idea is that the weakness of the human element leads to human error, which is the main cause of all accidents in the field of transportation. So be it the land, the sea, or the air, but this applies also to other fields that we humans are being involved. So this weakness was successfully dealt with in the field of air transportation by implementing rigorous recurrent training, use of simulators and checklists, standard procedures in a spirit of teamwork, coordination, right mentality, and self-discipline. So this is what is now called the airline concept. So same, we need similar concepts to help us deal with our everyday mistakes in other environments. For sure, an airplane crash may cost 100 human lives and attract attention immediately. But we can all imagine the cost of people who develop depression in their jobs because of the accumulation of mistakes, no matter if theirs or someone else's. So same like in the aviation industry, we need to develop a mistake concept that will allow us to coexist safely with our own mistakes, but also with the mistakes of other people, with no need to hide them or whitewash them at all. I talked now for so long, and I would like to know what you are thinking about. So what type of mistakes do you have in mind? It's about mistakes in a business context. So it's not about forgetting to replace the toilet paper roll when it runs out. So what exactly are all these mistakes we are talking about? For sure, it can be something bigger or quite phenomenal. Usually big mistakes are what we call crimes. So yes, a crime is also good to admit. I wish Volkswagen had guts to start clearing out the mess of the diesel scandal before this was found out by the journalists and the justice. Or see here something related to Nestlé. Again, this appeared some 2 weeks ago. So it's 1st of June that it appeared in a magazine in German. And one may see this as a good reason to stop buying anything under their brand. So the idea is that they had an internal memo and they were characterizing their products as unhealthy. So for me, it's quite the opposite that happened. I felt like I wanted to reward the managers that failed to ignore the reality and accept the truth. This is the first step for Nestlé to become an even better and unimaginably wiser company than what they currently are. And there is also another issue. What about mistakes we don't admit because we don't see them as mistakes? Okay, so imagine all people around you thinking you did something crooked and you're not feeling at all like this. So it's what I mentioned before about Richard Nixon may have felt, or at least how he made us think he felt. One may feel the pressure of conformity, be nice and pretend one admits a mistake, though he or she is deeply convinced that a mistake lies elsewhere. We all may find it difficult to openly admit how failed the leadership in a company we work for is. So what we do is we end up with narratives about everything else than the truth. So we construct edifices that are anything at all than convincing and end up becoming worse people than we originally were because we correct the wrong mistakes. And imagine that apart from Luca Pacioli's double book entry accounting, there is now the serious risk of ending up with what the psychiatric literature defines as the phenomenon of double bookkeeping. So this is a term. And of course, I use the term metaphorically here, but there is a real case. So it's not hypothetical or fictitious. And if one thinks that it's the HR, the human resources that will help clear things, this is for sure surreal, both as a belief and as an expectation. And the thing is that, from my side, some final words now before closing this talk and giving you the opportunity to ask questions or have a short discussion. The worst mistakes we do are the ones when we think we are right. Not knowing what is right or wrong is acceptable, but being obsessed of correctness is sometimes a crime. And many crimes in the history of humanity were the results of people's belief or other conviction that they were doing the right thing. So I would not like to elaborate. It would be quite discomforting to mention any specific examples. So same much to blame are, however, also nations and the people who avoided making any mistakes, but somehow managed to have blood on their hands as well by doing nothing. And the world changes. And we didn't need Corona to recognize this. And when there is a change in our collective understanding for some basic things, this is where we realize that the world changes, and social justice, solidarity have nothing to do with historical events. They have to do with the lives and the future of people. And this conference brings, as I read in the conference website, about practitioners and researchers from around the world. And in the website, there was mentioned that these are about 50 countries. So can you imagine 50 different national cultures of mistakes? How much worth it would be to open a dialogue and learn. Workplaces that attract highly intelligent people and then devastate them and leave them as emotional ruins are adding no value and bring no wealth to our economies. They may give us the illusion that they bring profit, growth, or development. But in the long run, they harm all three and a lot more. And okay, there is no need to start crusades. We are still harvesting the mischiefs of the crusades that happened even some 1,000 years before. And a little bit of introspection for studying our mistakes and a little bit of extroversion to openly talk about them is what is needed. So from my side, what I would suggest is that we should prepare for building our own personal Wunderkammers, curiosity cabinets, where we will store, document, and curate all our mistakes and feel comfortable to share them, show them to family, friends, to our colleagues, and learn from them. Thank you for your attention, and I will be happy to receive any questions or listen to your ideas, comments, and also feel free to express opinions. And perhaps, David, my talk was also a mistake. Thank you.
It was not a mistake. Thank you so much. No, it's really, really interesting. We have a question from Bruce, which asks, how do you deal with cultural barriers where some people prefer not to share feedback, and especially not sharing negative feedback? People
First of all, it depends not amongst different nations, cultures, organizations. It may be that in a single company, you may have different cultures because different departments of a company have different leaders, or they have been somehow led to follow some certain paths. But trust is something that needs time, and in this respect, it is something that needs time to build this culture. And also people are not naive or blue-eyed, as they say in German, to trust someone who comes with nice ideas and then have them outing themselves or admitting mistakes and then being punished for this. So it might be something that a company might need to seriously study, and it might take some years. But the problem, as I said, is that sometimes we fail to see mistakes as a shadow capital. And this was the case also of Volkswagen. And I think that they didn't learn anything. They may pretend that they learned because they are expected to say this, but they didn't learn. They didn't learn. So the only thing is that they create this ends up in bureaucracy. So you have corporate social responsibility departments, unit procedures that are run by companies that have no social responsibility, neither to the environment, nor to their countries, nor to their people. So this is the thing, that it needs time to take place. Yeah, but every day that is left unused, it's not helping at all. So it's something that can start, yeah, without needing to be announced. Yeah.
Let me ask a different question. So within specifically the world of learning experiences, just for a second, what are your thoughts on what we can do to encourage people to feel it's okay to fail? Some of that is just going to have to be cultural within the organization, but are there things we can do in the experience that people feel it's okay, right? Because I think you're absolutely right. People feel more and more today, you're not allowed to make mistakes. You always have to be right. So, and that discourages experimentation, that discourages, a lot of things, and prevents people from learning from and acknowledging their mistakes, right? The tendency is to bury them. But if you're in a learning experience, at least the goal is learning. What are some things that maybe you can do to sort of structure it so that people are free to fail? I've done a lot of simulations where we want people to fail. And, 30 years ago, more people felt comfortable failing than they do now, from what I've seen, right? So how can we help people feel comfortable experimenting and making mistakes and more than comfortable would feel that that's something that's a good thing. That's something they should be doing.
As I said before, I think that it starts also. So I will bring an example, a personal example from my experiences with students. So there, I have no problem that in case I did something wrong, to admit it immediately. And the risk there is that, of course, it might be that the other side, my boss, my colleagues, the people in my unit or my students might take advantage of this. But I think that people can tell whether someone is genuinely admitting a mistake or is only playing tactics. And this is the thing there that it's Volkswagen, they try to hide the truth. And then when they saw there only that this was unavoidable, that they could not anymore hide it, they started. So this is tactics. This is Clausewitz. And this is something that doesn't add any value at all. It keeps us from looking into the future and from improving ourselves as organizations, nations. But the thing is that it's not as difficult as it seems. So it might seem like revolutionary. It's not at all. It's a very practical thing, yeah? But for some reason, it seems like we are unable to see how obvious it is that one can live with their own mistakes. I use so many times the case of Richard Nixon. I may bring it as an example again for third and last time, that he also was a case of someone who lived with his own mistakes till his end. Okay?
Yeah. All right. Well.
I see there are also some other questions there.
There are questions. Yes. If you want to look in the Q&A, Christina has a question about the future and AI. Whether you think AI in whatever form.
This is a good question.
Okay.
This is a very good question. I thank you very much. Why? Because I think that AI can help us become better people. I really believe this, because you may have a stupid AI system where you expose it to see my picture and you teach the system that this is David. And then after some time, the system will use other sources, external sources, and will learn that this is not David. There is David. And so our AI systems, even if they are stupidly designed or with biases because of the designers, but at least they may learn more than we humans, which means that AI can help a lot if, of course, applied, engineered to be applied in the right context. So if we will not see there that someone is punishing employees for making mistakes or for God's sake coming up with ideas, for instance, that middle-aged Southerners like I am coming from Greece tend to make more mistakes than whatever else type of nationality or demographics. So no, in this respect, I do think that we could make use of something that can be named as machine learning for humans, so that somehow we can improve our learning curves as individuals or as in organizations using some basic AI features. Yeah, this is very relevant. Yeah.
Oh, that's a great question. And here's a question related to that, sort of about how we got here, and in terms of how mistakes are so, it's so difficult to admit making mistakes. How much do you think, today's internet has affected people's views of mistakes, right? It's like, with Google, like everybody is a fact checker, right? Like that's kind of where we are. Like, it used to, that doesn't always need to be the focus. I like things to be correct, but that doesn't always need to be the focus. But you feel like, anybody, especially online, right? You've seen people make a Twitter comment and they make one small typo and everybody, and they get 1,000 comments about it, or you make one small thing that's not completely accurate and they correct it in 30 seconds later, but they've already gotten all kinds of responses. So are there, the way that we use the internet, the way that we sort of, can find information now, do you feel like that pushes people into a world that overvalues being correct rather than experimenting and analyzing and thinking? So we'll kind of leave it there.
A problem there is that while for me, for instance, I may have said stupid things which I shared with you, and they may have been kept amongst us. But if now you would upload these, my speech, my talk on internet, and several hundreds or thousands of people will watch it, I will be exposed to many interpretations, which many of them will be also made in a sinister way. And then I will be unable there. I will be only like, like in the Roman arenas. So the best thing I have to do is to keep my mouth shut. But this is there that actually internet has increased the nonsense making content that we exchange. And this is also how it also alienated also several other contexts, like the learning context in a university or even in a corporate environment. Yeah, but this is something that we have to live with, and it's not that internet disables us to live together with our mistakes. No, same as we live with our prejudice in internet and the web, we can live also with our mistakes. Yeah.
All right, well, fantastic. No, I think we are just about at the end of our time, and I think when we've managed to cover everything from Roman gladiators to AI all in the span of one talk, it means we've used the time wisely and well. It's really an interesting discussion, and I'd love to continue it, and hopefully you'll be able to be around at least through the chats and everything else, and be here in person next year. So it's great to see you, and great to see you as always and talk with you, and so much to think about, and a lot of things we can do within an organization. So Adamantios, thank you so much for being here with us.
Many thanks.